Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we've got another of our daily Pride Month decks. This is deck number 15, so we are officially halfway through the month of June, which is wild to me because it feels like we just started doing these decks. But this deck is titled Discovering Yourself because sometimes the process of discovering ourselves and our personalities and our sexualities and our preferences is an incredibly long and arduous journey. But to everyone who is currently on that journey or who has already gone through that journey, I commend you in staying true to yourself, and I hope you live a wonderful, happy life. So, with that being said, in case you've missed the first few episodes of this, or I suppose at this point the first half of these episodes, what we are doing is building a commander deck for Magic the Gathering using two non-partner commanders, working with a budget of $100 or less, and celebrating the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community for all of June through the use of Magic the Gathering. So for today, our partners are quite literally going to be discovering, or maybe I should say investigating, because in this case, we have Fibblethip the Lost and Morska Undersea Sleuth. So starting off with Fibblethip, we have Fibblethip the Lost, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 legendary creature, Homunculus. When Fibblethip enters the battlefield, draw a card. If it entered from your library or was cast from your library, draw 2 cards instead. I'll be perfectly honest, we don't really have a way to do that considering he's in the command zone, but you never know. And when Fibblethip becomes the target of a spell, shuffle Fibblethip into its owner's library. Again, because he's in the command zone, we'll probably put him there instead of the library, but again, something you can do. And Fibblethip's partner today is Morska Undersea Sleuth, which is green, white, blue for a 2/3 legendary creature, Vidalcan Fish Detective. You have no maximum hand size, and at the beginning of your upkeep, investigate. Plus, whenever you draw your second card each turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Morska Undersea Sleuth. So with the commanders being said, let's move on to some of the themes in this deck and talk about what really makes this deck function and what we want to be doing. So first off, kind of the obvious one, we have clues. The main focus of Morska is to create clues, and clues are a great way to draw additional cards, as is Fibblethip, so we can kind of use that to our advantage with something like Briarbridge Tracker, which is 2 and a green for a 2/3 human scout. It's got vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, investigate, and as long as you control a token, Briarbridge Tracker gets +2/+0. So while a 4/3 vigilance isn't over the top in Commander, it's probably not going to win a ton of games. It's almost consistently going to be a 4/2 instead of anything else, because we're almost always going to have a token, including the token that it does bring with it. So we have ways to investigate, get a bunch of clues, and then use those clues to our advantage. One of the ways we can do that is with theme number 2, which is sacrificing clues. There's actually quite a few cards that have been printed in the last couple of years that specifically care about when you sacrifice clues or artifacts, and a good example of that is Lannis Genetics Expert, which is 1 and a hybrid green-blue for a 1/2 legendary creature Snake Elf Detective. It has Evolve, and whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Lannis, investigate that many times. Plus, whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature you control. This gives us the ability to play around with a lot of +1/+1 counters, which we're going to get from Lannis and we're going to get from Morska and a bunch of our other creatures, while also still leaning into the fact that we want to make clues, we want to sacrifice clues, we want to draw cards, and Lannis plays in both of those spaces very well and is a very powerful creature. Moving on to our final theme of the deck, this is drawing cards. We really want to lean pretty heavily on the ability to draw 2 cards a turn. On our turn, that means that if we just draw our card for turn and then sacrifice a clue, we've now drawn 2, because there are a lot of cards in Magic that care about you drawing 2 cards and will trigger because of it. Prince Imrahil the Fair is one of those cards, and he is white and a blue for a 2/2 legendary creature human noble. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. This is also the reason why we have Fibblethip as our second commander, other than, of course, the fact that I personally just love Fibblethip. I think he's great. But being able to cast our commander to draw a card at the same cost as sacrificing a clue means that if we ever don't have clues, we're able to use Fibblethip to trigger these card draw effects, and then the clues can be used on other turns to trigger it multiple times around the table. So those are our themes for today, and the next thing we're going to do is take a look at some key cards in this deck. And these are cards that really synergize with what we're trying to do, and in a lot of cases are value pieces or win conditions, or honestly just the MVPs of the deck. So starting off with our first key card, we have Armed with Proof. A lot of times in clue decks, you don't have a very strong win condition. It's very difficult to just make a ton of clues and then use your mana to sacrifice it and draw a ton of cards, and then also still be able to win the game. Armed with Proof is going to give us what we need to win because it is 2 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, investigate twice, and clues you control are equipment in addition to their other types, and have equipped creature gets +2/+0, and it equips for 2. Notably, there's a couple of reasons this is going to be important. Number one, Morska is going to be a huge creature as this game goes on, because every time we're sacrificing a clue and drawing our second card each turn, Morska is going to get bigger. Plus, the nice little niche ability of Fibblethip is that when Fibblethip becomes the target of a spell, he gets shuffled into our library. It says nothing about abilities. We can actually equip Fibblethip with a bunch of clues and then just beat people down with a giant homunculus, which is how my personal Fibblethip deck is built, so I'm a huge fan of that. Moving on to our second key card, this one is going to be Merchant of Truth. Merchant of Truth, another win condition for the deck. This is definitely probably the most efficient. Armed with Proof might also be up there, but I think I'm probably going to say Merchant of Truth is the most efficient win condition because it is 2 white for a 2/5 Angel Detective. It has flying. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, investigate, and clues you control have Exalted. So whenever a creature attacks alone, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each instance of Exalted. So if we have, say 10 clues, when we attack with a single creature, that creature will get +10/+10, and that is very quickly going to start knocking people out with Fibblethip or with Morska. But even with something like Merchant of Truth, which has flying, we can pretty much guarantee we're doing a ton of damage every single combat, even though we're only attacking with one creature. Finally though, moving to our last key card, this one is Tangle Trove Kelp. And Tangle Trove Kelp, 5 blue for a 6/6 artifact creature clue plant. It has Ward 2. At the beginning of each combat, other clues you control become 6/6 plant creatures in addition to their other types until the end of turn, and you can pay 2 and sacrifice the kelp to draw a card. So we talked about Armed with Proof being able to give us a win condition with equipment, Merchant of Truth is going to give us a win condition with Exalted, and Tangle Trove Kelp gives us a win condition by just straight up turning our clues into 6/6s and letting us beat face. So I'm a huge fan of Tangle Trove Kelp. I understand it is 7 mana, so it is difficult to cast. But because it triggers on each combat, it means that we can use our clues as defense because we can use them to block someone attacking us, but we can also cast the kelp and immediately move to combat, turn our clues into plants, and then just start hitting people when they definitely were not expecting it. So I do think it's a great win condition that can, 1, come out of nowhere, and 2, turn our creatures into 6/6s, which is not nothing, and kind of just steamroll our opponents. So those are all of our key cards for today, but moving on to the next piece of our deck tech, in this case we have Cool Interactions. And these are cards that really synergize well together, and in a lot of cases are just fun interactions that I wanted to highlight. So starting off with our first cool interaction, we have Tireless Tracker and On the Trail. So Tireless Tracker, 2 and a green for a 3/2 human scout. It's got landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, investigate, and whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. On the trail is 1 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So this kind of becomes I don't want to say very fast engine because we can really only trigger this once per turn, but if we play a land with Tireless Tracker, we then make a clue. We can sacrifice that clue to draw our second card each turn, which puts a counter on the tracker, lets us trigger on the trail. We put a land from our hand into play, which, considering we just drew a card, we will most likely have. And then when that land enters, we make another clue, letting us repeat this process next turn. So every turn, we are able to put an extra land into play and draw an additional card, plus keep the clue that we started with. So while this isn't a big flashy combo, it's still something that's going to be pretty efficient and pretty effective because it's going to give us just that little bit of an edge we need to kind of push ahead of our opponents. Finally, our next cool interaction is going to be between Officious Interrogation and Jol Royale Monvoli Recluse. So Officious Interrogation is a white and a blue for an instant. This spell costs a blue and a white more to cast for each target beyond the first. Choose any number of target players. Investigate X times, where X is the total number of creatures those players control. And the reason I wanted to pair this up with Jol Royale is because she is 1 and a green for a 1/2 legendary creature human druid. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 green cat creature token. Then you can pay 4 green, and until the end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. This combination of cards means we can essentially make a ton of tokens with Jol Royale, turn those tokens into clues with Officious Interrogation, and then we can hopefully crack all of those clues, draw a ton of cards, and turn our cats into massive creatures with Jol Royale's second ability. So combined, these two cards really just work together and kind of build off of each other, each of them making the next instance of an ability that much more effective. Anyway though, that is the end of our cool interactions for today, and obviously the final piece of our deck tech is to talk about the price of the deck. So today our total deck price came in at $44.36, with the most expensive card being Ramas Ekor Ancient Shield at a massive $17.02. So Ramas Ekor is 3 and a white for a legendary artifact. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, draw a card, then create a 0/3 white wall creature token with Defender, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control with Defender gain Exalted until the end of turn. Now admittedly, this doesn't immediately synergize with a lot of our other things. The main reason it's here is because it can draw a card by casting our second spell. We'll most likely be able to cast 2 spells given the amount of card draw, then we'll draw a card, trigger our draw 2 abilities. We also get some more Exalted, which can be useful. However, it is, like I said, a massive $17. So if you did need to trim down on the budget of this deck, just cutting out Ramas Ekor trims it down to about $27, which is a much more manageable price than $44. It quite literally almost cuts it in half, which is wild, but if you want to keep it in, it's definitely very good. However, this can be a very solid budget deck if you just cut out this one card. Finally though, that brings us to the actual end of our deck tech for today. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps out and I really appreciate it. If you would love to go a little bit above and beyond, you can always find us over on Patreon and right here on YouTube as a channel member. So a shout out to all of our current patrons and channel members. And as always, thank you so much everybody for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful Pride Month, and I will see you all on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.